What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Breakdown. Today, Kavai and I have a special guest. She is part of the medical medium community. A lot of you guys probably know her from her Instagram account, The Wellness Way. She posts great contact. She posts great information on medical medium stuff. So definitely go check her out after the podcast. But yeah, this is Audrey, everyone.
Hi guys, I'm so happy to be here. You know when AW gets on a podcast or an interview and then he's throwing out all these positive filter words like, guys, I'm so excited to be here. Like, this is the greatest. Like, thank you for having me. I'm so honored. I just feel like I need a few of those.
I mean, you are the first official guest on the Breakdown, so this is like a big milestone within the podcast.
I feel honored. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh yeah,
We're very happy to have
very
you.
special guest.
We're going to do a little bit something different on the podcast before jumping into chapter 10, the moderation trap, which is just so good. We want to dive into a little bit more of, Audrey's backstory and kind of why she got into medical medium. We just figured we have a guest on the podcast. We want to learn a little bit more about them. So without further ado, Audrey, like, in the simplest way, and we'll start asking questions too to kind of help guide you if you need it, which I doubt. But do you maybe want to go into just explaining, how did your journey with like, how did you find in the first place?
I'm 23 now, but I basically started getting sick when I went through puberty. So I say about when I was 14 or 15, that's when I started getting sick.
What were some of the symptoms that you were having with that?
The main symptom that I've dealt with for the longest, that has been the most debilitating and is sticking around the longest, has been chronic fatigue syndrome or neurological fatigue, MECFS, mainly, and really debilitating brain fog, brain inflammation. But I've also dealt with really bad mental health, severe depression, severe anxiety, panic attacks, digestive issues, a lot of different stuff.
So like at puberty, this starts happening. Did anything like happen in your life, like a big event that caused these things, or did they just appear?
Yeah, so there was no, like, I know what you're talking about. People have like a breakup and then all of a sudden they get their first symptom and it's like one day they wake up and they have these symptoms. It wasn't like that for me. It was this slow, painful decline. It was like I didn't really know what was happening to me, and it was so elusive, like fatigue and my brain isn't working, and I started complaining about being tired all the time, but it wasn't like stark enough or like black and white enough where I wake up one day and I'm complaining about a symptom that, like, I think anyone around me, including my parents, were really like, oh, this is a big deal. It's just like, oh, she's just tired, or like she has brain fog, whatever the heck that means. And so I didn't really get I didn't recognize it for what it was fully until I was like deep enough in it that I was like, this is not okay. Like, I'm sick. These are like symptoms.
So like at the beginning, was it just like, oh, like you'd be doing something and a symptom would randomly like come up here and there? It wasn't something that was like super debilitating?
So my symptoms basically are 24/7 all the time. Like, it can get worse, but it's sort of like I always have a baseline and it never gets better. Like, for some people, they have intermittent brain fog. Basically, I've had brain fog 24/7 forever, like just for the past 10 years or so since I started having brain fog. It's not like it comes and goes. Same with the fatigue.
So what ended up like, because okay, the last 10 years, that's a long time. And when I think about like when I had symptoms, I mean, when they were really bad, I didn't even want to like continue living. Like it was just so hard. So like in terms like for you, what got you through the last 10 years? Because you haven't been doing medical medium for 10 years, correct?
Yeah, so I found medical medium 3 years ago. Literally almost like this is the month I think I found medical medium 3 years ago.
Woohoo!
And
Happy
I had
anniversary.
Thank you. I had basically the story medical medium talks about for everyone. It's like doctor shopping, trying every diet, trying every modality. I did it as a teenager. And so I was working with a naturopathic doctor for 2 years. I was diligent. This guy was so smart. I swear to God, I thought he was going to cure me. He was going to fix me. And I was so caught up in the it's all in your gut. That's the bit that I got tangled in. And I thought it was my gut microbiome, and I had an overgrowth of candida, and I basically needed to fix that, and it was going to fix my nervous system and my brain. After about 2 years and no relief, no change, I just stopped seeing him, and I really was going to give up. I was like, should I just go on medication? Like, I don't know, is this what my life's going to be like from now on? Because that was what I thought was the answer. And so I just went back to the basics of what I was used to dealing with my symptoms, because nobody really took me seriously. Nobody believed me. And going to see doctors was like, I'd been there, done that, right? So here I am back on Google. But the thing this time is I now had new language to describe what was happening to me. I now understood that I had chronic fatigue syndrome. And I now, the naturopathic doctor had used the word Epstein-Barr virus with me. Where do you get that from? You know, but
whoa.
plug those
A
into
little poaching.
chronic fatigue syndrome, Epstein-Barr virus, and I saw a Goop column, which I think is by Gwyneth Paltrow, who's used medical medium information, and I saw the term medical medium, and I was like, what is that? And it came up a few other times in my research that I, checked out the website, and then I remember calling my mom, who had been basically my only friend and my only advocate in my healing journey. She was the only one who, wanted me to try different modalities with her and stuff. And she had her own health issues as well. So I called her up and I said, like, have you heard of medical medium? She said, oh yeah, I have multiple of his books in my Kindle for years now.
What?
I was like, what? You've been keeping this from me this whole time, and it was literally in your back pocket? It still to this day, I don't understand how she did not see it as the diamond in the rough that it is.
So did your mom know you had symptoms though, and you were seeing like this naturopath and everything?
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember from like when I was like 14, 15, she invited me to do like my first cleanse or my first diet with her, because she was constantly trying different things, and I tried everything in the alternative world. Yeah, so I basically that night, so I had previously been diagnosed with severe ADHD and was given Adderall for it. So I was taking Adderall, but because I also have really bad insomnia, one of the side effects is I can keep you up all night. So that night I literally opened up my mom's Kindle, and the first book, Medical Medium, I read that book like basically cover to cover, aside from the symptom chapters that didn't pertain to me, basically because I was on this stimulant drug, and all night bawled my eyes out. I felt like for the first time in my entire life, I was being seen. For, however many years, let's say that's like 7 years, for the first time, I felt like I was being understood, believed. Like he literally took my story and was writing it down. The next day, I was pissed. I was so angry. You're telling me that you hear a spirit and the answers are this simple? Just eat this way? I have been running circles around myself trying to figure this out. And, I think it's going to be so complicated or so huge. And it was like sitting in this little blue book all along. And I didn't know. But what he says about the angels and divine timing helping you to this information, it's not a coincidence. That was true for me.
So at this point in time, you find this book. Where does this take you next? And also, okay, is your mom doing medical medium, or like what is going on at that point?
Yeah, so my mom actually, at the time that I found medical medium, she had been diagnosed with cancer for a year now that I had found medical medium, acute myeloid leukemia, which is not a cancer you can live with. It basically takes you out. And I remember starting the protocols. I started celery juice. I could only do about 4 ounces at first. It made me so sick because of my like I would just immediately run to the bathroom or feel like I was going to throw up. I started the heavy metal detox smoothie, started taking out the no foods, and within a few weeks of doing the celery juice, I had this chronic heartburn for like years. After everything I ate, I did everything to get rid of this. Within a few weeks of celery juice, no more heartburn. Gone, never come back. It has never come back. I was like,
Amazing.
and I had a yeast infection for like 6 months, relentless, would not go away. Within weeks of just these few changes, gone, never came back. Just within basically the first 6 months, I was so sold on it, but I didn't have any like concrete enough results to like show her like, you should do this for your cancer, maybe it'll help you. And I was so stuck in this feeling, which probably other people can relate to, of like, I want to convince this person to do medical medium, but I'm not a success story yet. And so I feel like they're not going to believe me because I'm not walking evidence. And so I was battling with that for months. And I finally was like, look, she's on a ticking time bomb. Like, I need to do something, like anything I can to convince her. So basically, um, around that Christmas time, so I'd found it in like the beginning of the summer, I wrote her like a 6-page letter, just lawyering up like every piece of evidence, like trying to like convince her to do this. And at that point, she was going through, had been going through chemotherapy and a bone marrow transplant. And I wasn't living at home at this time. I was in college. I think about 3 months later, I had never heard back from her. At this point, the cancer had come back. So the chemotherapy failed and the bone marrow transplant, which could have been a cure, failed. The cancer came back. I was packing up my stuff to go home for spring break when I get a call from my dad. My mom had a seizure, 2 seizures, and was in the hospital. I went back home, and I think it really scared her to have like those episodes. She'd like completely bitten through her tongue, and was just like having no control over her body. She was like, fine, I'll do it. I'll do the medical medium. People always ask me, still to this day, I made a post about like her cancer and stuff. They ask me, they're like, my friend's struggling with cancer or like some like really terminal illness. Like, do you think this can help them? Like help them heal? And I always say, if they're not too far gone where like no matter what they do, nothing's going to save them, they can heal with this information. But if they're too far gone, like medical media, I remember very in the beginning, I remember listening to a podcast or something of his, and he was talking about sometimes it was so sad for him growing up to like SOC would tell him, look, like this person is dealing with this thing and like they're gone, like they're going to die. And so at that point, she only lived for several months longer than that. So, but she actually literally started doing medical medium, like doing the advanced 369s and stuff. And she hated it. She complained. She was like, I hate this shit. But yeah, so basically it was my finals, the end of the year. I was going through finals week. And that's when my mom found out and I got the text that she had weeks to live. So, I guess the answer at this for this story is that she like couldn't have saved herself from medical medium because she was dying, and you can't on someone's deathbed give them celery juice and they rise, Jesus Christ, rise from the from the ground or whatever, come back to life. So yeah.
So how do you go past, like how do you continue when your mom does pass away?
Honestly, when I remember going home, and what's crazy is that the stress of it wasn't even after she died. It was the few weeks before she died with all of my family there and like basically being her caretaker and watching someone. It is not like anything they show on a movie. Watching someone die of a disease, it's not pretty and it's very disturbing. And it was extremely stressful. And I remember I was so hell-bent on healing myself that even during this time of literally the most stressful time in my life, fight or flight, survival mode, I was still trying to heal and do cleanses. I would start at 369 on day 6, something terrible would happen and I'd stop, but I kept doing that because I wanted to like get there so badly. After my mom died, the depression was so bad, the grief was so bad. And I went back to school. That's another story of why I ended up going back to school. But it was going to school, dealing with the grief, it was too much. I basically I basically stopped medical medium, but I wasn't like going out and eating an egg burrito, but I wasn't juicing celery every day. I basically was vegan. I was eating rice, beans, oil, just to
Mhm.
I would go to this health food store and just get all their like pre-made foods for the week so that I could like survive. But yeah, so when I'm like, oh yeah, I've been doing medical medium for 3 years, they're like, and you're not healed? I'm like, well, okay, my mom died. Okay, I also wasn't doing medical medium for like 6 months. I was eating, all the filler foods. So it's not as like simple and as that. But to this day, just to answer your question, I swear to God that I think I would have been a lot worse off if I didn't have this information going through that. Like, I feel like it helped me heal that. Like, it literally, medical medium healing tools helped me heal the grief. I don't know how, but I swear to God it did in like a lot shorter time, or like a lot better and a lot faster, or whatever. It never fully heals, right? But I think I would have been a lot worse place off now if I didn't have this information.
It definitely seems like it came into your life in like the perfect time to prepare you for what happened.
I know. I wonder
I
that
guess you
too.
can never.
I'm like, if only I'd found this years earlier, maybe I could have saved her, But like, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's crazy to think though that your mom had the books the whole time.
I know. I to this day rack my mind why, if it was given to me by the angels, like it wasn't a coincidence for me to find it. Why wasn't it the same thing for her, But I remember her telling me she read Life Changing Foods and she loved how there were spiritual and emotional parts to the fruits and vegetables. And still remember her telling me that. And I'm like, that's
It,
what you remembered out of all this? Like, that's what
it
your soul recognized?
well, and you got
Life
to
Changing
remember
Foods is a
too.
really good book. I definitely agree
No,
with
it
her.
is.
Those
But I'm just saying for her, because she was so spiritual, that's what like she loved about it so much.
You were mentioning how it seemed like she loved doing different types of cleanses and did care about her body in that way. You know what I mean?
My
And
mom was the epitome of like healthy, like does healthy things. That's why it was like everyone was like, wait, she's the one who got cancer? Out of all these people who are drinking alcohol, eating pizza in the family, overweight, the health nut got cancer?
it's like one of those things where, like, when you are in that realm, because I've been in that realm too, where you're like in the spiritual, I'm so spiritual realm, and it's not even like I'm so spiritual, but you're just kind of seeing the world in that lens, and you read medical medium and you see it as like, oh, this is like another helpful book with helpful tools, but
Yeah.
you don't see it as like the truth,
Beautiful.
like this
Yeah.
is the thing that is going to heal me.
Yeah. It's so yeah, I think that's how she saw it, was like one piece of the whole thing versus the thing. Yeah. I
And
wonder
that's what I
what
want.
what makes one person see it that way versus the other way.
Well, and that's what I wanted to, like, my initial idea too was like chapter 10, the moderation trap. We're going to talk about like how consciousness plays a role, right? And I just kind of think too, like, we're so manipulated into like thinking and saying like, oh, everyone has like their own truth and their own things that's good for them versus not good for other people. And like, yeah, like to some extent we do have our own journey and own truth, if you want to say, to live. But there are some things like medical medium information that is the truth, like the absolute truth. No matter what, this is happening whether you like it or not. But because I feel like it's just so pushed that, do what works best for your body and everything like that, like
Mhm.
we're not trained to go into like reading medical medium with the mindset of like this is the truth. And the other thing is too is like I feel like there's some like for people that have gone into the mindset of reading things or looking at teachers in a way of like, oh, you're the truth, like you're going to save me, like for example with like your naturopath that you had before, like you look at him like you're going to save me, and then your heart gets broken because it doesn't work. It doesn't happen, and you like lose trust. And I know medical medium talks about this too. You lose trust in that. And so it kind of becomes like this like safety net to fall back on. Oh, you have to do what works for yourself. It's something that's been programmed, it seems like, in our consciousness over time. And so, like, with your mom, I could only assume, like, that has to be playing a role, because her soul, I would have to just take a guess, didn't real or like wasn't truly coming out, or couldn't, like, her, like, that wasn't her soul saying, "Oh, I don't like medical medium." Like, I think that's coming from, like, the consciousness and the subconscious of, like, not realizing, like, that's the absolute truth, and instead you're just, like, kind of picking up the idea of what's coming from society, if that makes sense.
I think it was two things. One, I think she would have been in like willing to do medical medium and stuff. And she did. I mean, I forgot to mention that the first summer when I found medical medium, I did tell her about it, and they did do a cleanse. Both my parents did a 369. But the second thing is that she was in the mainstream getting help from these mainstream people, hearing all of the statistics of you're gonna die, and it was so fear-based, like fear, 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 do this, like, do this chemotherapy immediately or else like you're gonna die. And so it was like, I think there was that, and then her trying to advocate for herself when my dad was so adamant on like, you get the chemo, you get the bone marrow transplant. So I think at the end of the day, it was just that she had a ticking time clock, and it was too late. When it finally was like, okay, I'm gonna do medical medium, like, Epstein-Barr
Yeah.
virus kills people, literally. I know
And
he
it's
said for all leukemias, it's Epstein-Barr virus and I think mercury. That's what makes
that's
a
it's
leukemia.
just so sad, because I mean, like, that was like the breaking point for her in terms of, like, okay, I'm now ready to just go on all in with medical medium, and unfortunately for her, it was too late at that point in time. But I want to say, like, for myself, and for, I feel like a lot of people in the medical medium community, like, when we hit that breaking point, that's usually when a lot of us are now willing to accept medical medium as, like, okay, this is the truth, and now I'm going to go with it, because, like, I fought it for so long. Like, I did it, I dabbled, and then I stopped, and I said, oh, I could do other things. Then I got super sick again, and then I was like, I did medical medium, and then I got a little bit better, did it again, and then finally, when I got super sick, I was like, all right, I give up, God. Medical medium's the way. I'm gonna go with it. And so it's like, it sucks, but it's just like the reality of how our world is, in terms of, like, people need to hit, like, that rock bottom to finally accept and believe, like, okay, like, this is the way I need to go. This is the truth.
It's so true. And that theory that like not everything works for everybody is just a way for people to make an excuse when it doesn't work. But really it's not working for anybody. Like all those other things don't work, but medical medium works for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
also,
usually, yeah, it's unfortunately you have to be pretty sick and like have tried all those other things that don't work for anybody before you're like, okay, is the way.
yeah. And also that idea that like, oh, well, like everyone's different and they need something different. I remember in a podcast, he specifically said that like all of our hearts pump blood, like all of our lungs breathe air, like we're all human beings. And so we have all the same like requirements. And like we don't go around saying, oh, well, different elephants need a different diet. No, all elephants have the elephant and
Yeah.
things that make us different and why we might need different things to heal in the realm of medical medium, right? Is because of different things are wrong with us. It's not because we each need a different diet. It's because of what we're dealing with.
Exactly. We all
Yeah.
need glucose and mineral salts and all the same types of food to heal. I mean, like if you have a certain condition, then more of a certain healing food would be needed. But generally, yeah, like we all need the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to get back to where we left off with your story, though. So your mom passes away. It sounded like then, like, you went to college, and you were kind of at that point, like, dabbling, kind of like you were like vegan. So at what point do you finally say, okay, I'm ready to, like, commit and, like, go for this?
I don't think I would ever call myself a dabbler in medical medium information. At
Okay.
that point, that the few months after my mom died, that I was like eating a lot of rice and beans, was basically I had given up. I was like, I couldn't do it, basically. But that wasn't me dabbling. That was me giving up.
Okay.
Basically, right from the front, I was like, let's do this. The first cleanse I ever did, I basically came off my Adderall, came off my caffeine, and I was bedridden. I could not get off the couch and walk up a flight of stairs. I was so sick. And all of the stimulants that I was taking was masking that. And I remember I came off of it, and it was really hard for me to come off of the caffeine. And because I was just a pancake on the couch, I did my first ever 369, the original, and it was brutal. I mean, I was coming, I wasn't standard American. I was like, doing like healthy at that point, alternative healthy. But it was still, didn't eat salads without anything, no oil, no fat, you know. It was brutal. I remember blending up the salads and just like drinking them with a straw just to get them down. But I remember waking up after day 9 and I felt like I had come up from the dead. Like I had been raised out of my coffin. I was walking around. I was alive. I was like, oh my God, this is the answer. I remember FaceTiming my friend and just like, I was ecstatic about what had happened. And of course, I didn't realize that you just have to like keep going. So I didn't realize that like it wasn't like, oh, you do one cleanse and then like it just sticks. I didn't realize
Yeah.
I go backwards. So I went on vacation and I was doing whatever I wanted. I went to California and I was eating egg burritos. I was smoking cigarettes. I was drinking alcohol, and I felt like shit. I felt like I was going backwards. I was like, what is happening? I came back and I remember I did another cleanse. And then I went on vacation again. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to try to like not drink alcohol and not do those things, but I'm also going to like eat chicken at a restaurant, like I was like going back and forth. Then when I got back, I was in a relationship, a really bad relationship. And people like, when I talk about the my healing journey or like anyone's healing journey, and people will say, "Oh, you've been doing that for 3 years and you're not healed." You have to take into account what the shit that person has been through, you know? Like
Yeah.
and it might not be as drastic as I like my mom died, but it could be like what I went through as well as like relationship turmoils. That stuff gets you down. I mean, I was in one of those roller coaster relationship makeup breakup thing, and it was like at the same time I was having like a nicotine addiction. For the first 6 months of medical medium, I was chief in the jewel. So it wasn't like black or white, but I was like, I didn't want to be doing it. And I was in this sort of makeup breakup relationship. And the reason I was doing it was because we'd have a breakup and then all of a sudden I'd be back on it. Then we'd have a makeup and I'd be doing a cleanse and I wasn't smoking the jewel. And then we'd have a breakup and then I was back on the nicotine. That relationship finally ended. And I spent about 3 months doing basically the 28-day cleanse modified where I was having cooked in the evening. And I was improving. Got out of that terrible toxic relationship and I was finally improving. When I was in that relationship, I would start at 369. On day 6, something would happen and I would break it and I would eat something I shouldn't. And of course, as everyone going through their healing journey, when you first start, you're like, you cheat and you like have a, make a cheat meal or whatever. Maybe it's like, oh, I'm eating chicken and rice, every 2 weeks or something like that. So I did have that as well in the game. I wasn't just like text 369s for a year, nothing else.
Yeah.
I'm not that relentless. After that breakup, basically, 3 months, it was my spring semester. I was just smooth sailing, improving. I was like, this is it. I was like, once summer comes, 369s advanced back to back, nothing's going to stop me. And then it was my final season. And I get the call, your mom has weeks to live. Everything goes downhill. And then it was that, 4 or 5 months of like eating. I wasn't eating bad. I was still eating tons of fruits and doing my smoothies, but I wasn't anything beyond that. And I got the flu twice. Let me tell you, I remember him talking about in an episode that a lot of people who have chronic illness and have a virus, they won't get like the flu. And it's because your virus will literally fight the other virus because it doesn't want that virus to invade your body and take up residence when it's trying to leech off you itself, which I thought
Yeah.
was crazy. I think that's actually in the Parasite podcast, for anyone wondering. Parasites want to kill
Wow.
you. Your virus doesn't actually want to kill you. It wants to live in you and suck the life out of you, but it doesn't want you dead. So I had not gotten sick for years. Like since I was a child, I had not gotten the flu. Throughout my entire illness, I didn't have the flu or anything. After my mom died that fall, I got the flu twice. Week long, 10 days, something like that, just out. And at the end of that, I'm like, all right, I feel like I can breathe through, from all the grief. I feel like I can breathe. I decided to take a semester off to like, this is my semester. I'm going to focus on the healing, right? Literally, my school ends and I get COVID. That
Damn.
COVID, let me tell you, this is probably the lowest point in my physical symptoms in my healing journey. I got COVID and it wiped me out. I've never been as sick as I was that winter. Chronic illness and winter do not go together. That is like the worst time ever. So I
Mhm.
was basically my neuro fatigue. I got what they call long haul COVID, which was basically my neuro fatigue got 10 times worse. And I was couch ridden. I was on Mattress Island for about 3 months. And I was determined and I was all raw. I did an advanced 369. I did the advanced heavy metal detox cleanse for like 2 weeks. I did the 30-day high powered brain shot therapy because Brainsaver had just come out for about 3 months, all raw, no fat, no salt, cleansing, on the couch, watching movies, doing the bare minimum to survive alone, which is another thing people don't talk about, it being lonely and chronic illness, not having that support. Didn't have my mom anymore. Wasn't super close with my rest of my family. Didn't have a lot of friends. My best friend had just ghosted me for her own chronic health issues. And yeah, after that, climbing out of that, I was like, I can do anything. I can heal. If I can get out of chronic illness. But it was for 3 months, no change. No change. And I remember hearing this quote. Somebody said it from the book Atomic Habits. It's basically like an ice melts at 32 degrees Celsius, right? Don't quote me on that. That could not be the right number. But 32 degrees Celsius, an ice cube will start melting into water,
Yeah.
right? But
Hmm.
from 24 degrees to 31 degrees, there's zero change, right? And that 1 degree change from 31 to 32, huge change. But every single degree, 24 to 25 to 26 to 27, you need all of those incremental steps in order to get to that 32 degree point. But you're not going to see any difference until you get to that 32 degrees and the ice starts melting. So that really hit me because when I was literally on the couch every day for 3 months, doing the bare minimum to survive, I wasn't seeing any change. It was freezing cold outside. I was like, is this working? Am I doing the right thing? I was in my like praying to God, my faith is wavering era. And then it was like 32 degrees. I hit it after about 2.5 months and I started getting better. I started seeing difference. I started being able to get up and walk around and take my dog on a walk. And so, yeah.
Where does that line up? So where you're at now, how long ago was that from now?
Right. So that was last winter. No.
Wow.
Yes, that was last winter. So it's
Wow.
been one.
Okay. So within the last year, have you noticed like even more improvement?
I've healed a lot, but I feel like simultaneously being a full-time college student has been really hard to then like do a cleanse. And so I feel like I haven't been able to like he says, go as far as you need to, or like to like really move the needle further. While being in school. But now that I'm on summer break, it's been like almost 4 weeks and I've been doing all raw and I've had the ups and downs of cleansing detox, but I'm like building my faith, moving towards the goal.
From what I see from like your Instagram stories and stuff like every day, like you're the type of person that will make so many different medical medium meals like throughout the week, so like the amount of cooking and stuff and effort that you put into it is absolutely insane. Like I'm very simple, so I will just like, even if I'm not on 369, I like keep my meals the same. I don't really change it up unless it's like a special occasion or I want to like, do something cool for myself and I want to go out of the way and like make a full dish. But you will go like the extra mile and like make it look so pretty. Do a dish like that's not just potatoes and lettuce. Yeah, I mean that is really good, but like you really do take it that extra step. Even when you were like in college, like I know it's
was
summertime now, but even in college, you were still going that hard.
it was like at the end of the day, being able to eat like a delicious meal was like what got me through.
Yeah, no, that's a
Yeah, I
while.
always look at your stories and I'm like, and so inspired to try more of the Brainsaver recipes because like I haven't tried very many of them, and yours just looks so good. Like,
Aw,
especially all the raw recipes make it look
Yeah, I
so good.
know. Like once
that's
I
so
saw that, I was like, I really need to be her friend. Okay, so just outlook on the future with your healing. Right now, you're on the 28-day cleanse, like you've told us. Uh, but what are some of the next things that you want to heal and are kind of looking forward to while on this journey?
So I am looking forward to healing my last stubborn neurological symptoms. So the fatigue, the brain fog, all of the brain related symptoms like forgetfulness and ADHD and difficulty learning and reading and synthesizing information and such. And also, I have like metals in my optic nerve, making me have like kind of this glitchy, blurry vision all the time. I also have hard of hearing and difficulty smelling. So, kind of my dream fantasy picture is just being able to like breathe in and smell things clearly and just like hear things crystal clearly and see things crystal clearly, um, and just have a clean running nervous system. And all my other little symptoms I hope to clear up, like acne and cavities and things like that.
I like it. I like it. Anything you want to ask about?
Hold on, I have a bunch of questions written down. One of my questions was, what do you do to feel like calm and peaceful in your healing journey when you're having symptom flares?
I feel like a huge piece of my own personal healing is learning to not live in fight or flight. Like I've been living in survival mode or fight or flight for so long that like learning to like not live in that way has been like to benefit my healing physically has been huge. And I feel like a huge piece of like kind of my 2 steps backward and my 3 steps forward, 2 steps backward, that whole thing has been stress and like uh adrenalized emotions and that fight or flight constantly. So unlearning that has been, I feel like, part of my personal healing journey. And so now, like, not having to be perfect all the time, like that perfectionist, I had that huge, not having to go it alone. That's a huge one. I was always learned growing up. It's like be a lone wolf, be independent, go it alone, heal yourself. Like you don't, and that whole piece in the healing path about community and that social connection, like now doing this with you guys, being here on this podcast, like making medical medium friends. When I first started this, I was so alone. And I bet a lot of people on here can relate. It's like finding people who understand and like you can talk to and not being alone has been a really big part of my personal healing journey, and I'm sure a lot of other people's.
Like with the unlearning the fight or flight, is that has the most helpful thing for that just been like reading the information and like the meditations or
Honestly, the fact that where this is all coming from is compassion is like it just clicks everything into place. Learning, like he literally has a piece in one of his books where he talks about the difference between our mainstream societal idea of what self-love is versus what self-compassion is, and how like there's tons of self-love, but like you need self-compassion for when you're not doing good, for when you've messed up or you failed or you actually ate a cheat food or whatever. Like having self-compassion is like the most healing thing.
that information from medical medium to have compassion for yourself is really healing. It's easier said than done because it's hard to keep to like remind yourself to have compassion when you're having those symptoms and you haven't healed yet. Because it can be so hard.
Hard. Yeah. But that on it, like honestly, no tips, no tricks, no, oh, I meditate and go for a walk and, do this little, soothing thing. Like it's actually there's the self-compassion piece. And a huge part of that for me personally has been and I'm learning this every day, is reaching out for help. Like I have never been that person. I mean, I was literally just talking to David last night and we were talking about how I come off as sort of like a brick wall, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm learning that part of this healing journey is learning to, when I'm a mess and I'm sad and I'm chronic fatigue on the couch with my hair not washed in 3 days in a messy bun, FaceTiming someone and saying like, hey, I'm struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. And the MM community is so helpful for that. There's so many amazing people. And yeah, I guess David kind of asked this question a little bit, but like, how do you see yourself in your healed life? Like 10 years, 20 years in the future, like, what do you see yourself doing?
Oh my gosh. Such a generous question, because I'm sure, as everyone who's been sick and really beaten down, like having that fantasy in your head, sometimes it feels so far, like it's just you can't grasp it. But for me, like that I said to you, I like want to wake up, because one thing for me, basically in the past 10 years, I have not woken up a single morning and not felt like I got hit by a bus. Like I was a bag of bricks, I wake up and I feel like shit. I do not feel refreshed. I struggle waking up often for hours. So being able to just wake up and like actually feel awake and alive, being able to smell again, being able to hear again, being able to see clearly again, wake up, open my eyes, and just have all my senses be sharpened and not feel like I'm living in this gray bubble. And also another thing of just, I don't know if this is me or also partly a symptom in metals and such, but I mean, I've had basically chronic anxiety, specifically social anxiety, since I was a kid. A big part of that was being like super, super insecure, like my whole growing up, teenage years, everything. And I know that's not like me, you know? I'm not a shy person. I'm like, I think I'm pretty outgoing and talkative and, but yeah, not having that crippling anxiety and insecurity would be nice.
Yeah.
And not having fatigue, being able to just run. I haven't run in years. I barely walk, to my fridge. But being able to run or go on a hike or go swimming, like doing these outdoor, like physical activities, going to the gym, like, being able to go out with friends. I would love to just be like, oh, every day I just have the energy to do things and live my life and plan things and work hard and not, you know, be so fatigued and so brain fogged. Be able to read. Oh my God, I want to be able to read. Because when I read, because my vision's so glitchy and messed up, it's literally like pulling teeth. I can't keep my eyes on the little words on the page, like following them. So being able to just open a book. Oh, and people who read like for fun, like a novel, and you have a movie going on in your head because you're so into it and so into the flow of the book. I remember having that when I was young, like a child. I don't have that anymore. I would love to have that again. But it's just such a struggle for me to read. So,
Gosh, I've never
also,
had that when I've read a book, even when I was young.
really, you've never read a story, like a novel, like a nonfiction, and just like you had a movie going on in your head, you were so into it, you weren't even aware that you were reading words on a page because you were just like in the book?
No, that sounds absolutely phenomenal. I want to have that.
Oh my
Do
God.
some people just not have that? Or is that something that's caused from brain fog to not be able to?
Well, like I just think I don't know. It's always just been hard for me to read books. I just found them kind of boring. like don't get me wrong, there were some books that like caught my attention and I like read them and I enjoyed them, but I mean, it's hard enough to read the medical medium books. But I also have like that thing with the vision. So like when I read the words on like the pages and stuff, they will get all like fuzzy and like I have to keep rereading lines over and over again because
Same.
I'm not processing them. They're fuzzy and I'm not processing them.
Mhm.
And so like I read a whole like page and I just be like, I don't even know what I just read. And so then
Yep.
I gotta go back and reread it.
I
Yep.
forget what I'm reading when I'm reading, and I'm like, what the heck am I even like? What? But luckily, my eyes don't do that thing. That sounds pretty crazy. But if I'm just
It's great.
laying, or if I'm like in the sun, or even right now, like in the corners of my eyes, I see all of these like dark spots like following my eyes around.
Mhm.
And I've
Oh god.
heard that that's like shell casings of EBV or something.
Oh
Oh,
really?
you
I've
mean
never.
eye floaters?
I floated, yeah.
Yeah, I have that. When I look at like the blue sky, I can see all those little like hair like little squiggles in my
Yeah,
field.
it's so weird.
Yeah. That
I,
is what you said is right. It's the casing, like EBV shell, membrane shell,
that's
whatever.
oh,
Damn, that
yeah.
sounds
Yeah.
wild.
I feel
I've
like
never had
I've
that.
gotten more of them too. But I feel like all of those things that you like see for yourself in your future when you're healed are just you're not even asking for much at all. You're just asking for like the bare minimum of just being a human.
I just want a vegetable garden, some fruit trees, you know, live somewhere warm. I'm so sick of the winter. Once you go through chronic illness and the winter, you're like, I hate screw snow. Like I'm done with this. I want to go live somewhere tropical.
I can't
Uh,
imagine. It's like 68 degrees and I'm freezing cold.
Okay, so before we go into the next thing, does anyone want to add anything else? I know you said you might want to.
Oh, I just had a kind of a big part of my healing story that I forgot that I'm left out. But I don't know. Maybe I'll say this because somebody else might have the same experience. But I actually got medication damage. I don't know the exact phrase that they use, but I took Adderall for ADHD, and
Hmm.
it gave me a panic attack that was so bad I thought I was going to die. Like heart beating out of my chest, severe chest pains. It felt like I was being struck by lightning over and over again, and it lasted for 3 hours. And so after that happened, it like damaged me. Like it was an event that like skyrocketed Epstein-Barr virus or let it spread or something, because I started after that for about maybe like 6 to 8 months afterward, as I was actively doing medical medium to heal it. I started having heart palpitations for the first time in my life. I was having chest pains. I was having like shocks. Like I literally felt like I was being like shocked by that thing that they put on you to like bring you back to life. The shock pads.
Yeah.
Like shocks in my heart. It was terrifying. I thought my heart was gonna like give out. I was gonna have a heart attack. Vibrating sensations all over my body, like painful tingling and buzzing, tightness of chest, tachycardia, and panic attacks that would land me in the ER, right? With them going, oh, it's all in your head. Like, yeah, right. This is not emotional. I mean, feelings of intense panic and doom, but impending doom, but not, I'm having, my boyfriend broke up with me and I'm upset. Um, so I had that for like 6 months afterward. That is something that healed with medical medium over the months of having it. Like I was still at that time trying to like wanting caffeine as a crutch, but I remember I would drink like one sip of green tea and I would start having those symptoms again. I would drink a little coffee, and it would throw me into a panic attack that would land me in the ER. So caffeine is no joke.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I had a
um,
panic attack after I drank coffee after being on MM as well. And I went to the ER because I thought I was gonna die. Because I had listened to the like caffeine episode and where he says that you can have a reverse heartbeat and die. I thought I was gonna die and I was freaking out because my heart was also beating too fast. So I was like, I'm gonna die.
oh my
Oh
god, that
man,
scared me listening to
yeah,
that
Panic
part of
attacks are so
versus
scary.
Larry shock in your heart.
that's freaking crazy.
What did you say?
Panic attacks are just so scary.
They're
Like
so scary.
I I can't even like the first time I even learned that like what a panic attack really was. It was like a couple years ago. I was with my ex and she was just sitting down on the couch and we were like eating dinner and we were watching TV and she was like, I'm getting a panic attack right now. And I'm like, what does that mean? And she was all like, here. And she grabbed my hand and she like put my like fingers on like her throat where you could like feel like her heart beating, like her pulse. And it was beating absolutely insane, like insanely fast. And I looked at her and I was all like, are you okay? Like, what is going on? And she's like, yeah, like, I mean, I just get panic attacks like this. And she's like, I just took my medication for it. So it should like, hopefully slow down at some point. But like right now I just have to sit with it. And I was like, oh my gosh. And she's like, let's just continue having a conversation though to like get my mind off of it. And I remember like when I felt her neck and it was just like pulsing so fast, I like that scared the fuck out of me. Like I'm not even gonna lie. Like I was so scared. And I was just like, how can anyone even like go through this, first of all? And secondly, how do we not go through this? How do I not let this happen to me? And so like, I mean, a couple months later, I started to have really bad panic attacks myself. And so I started to experience them. But I mean, I just, from that initial experience, and I think like that initial experience too, you know how medical medium talks about how like your soul can come out of your body, especially from like damage and stuff. And so to like protect you, your soul will come out of your body to kind of like protect the soul so the soul doesn't take damage. And like, I just like when I reflect upon that moment, like I feel like that was one of the moments where like my soul, I could like literally feel like come out of my body because it just scared me so much. And at the time, I didn't really believe in medical medium information like that. And I was so scared. I was just like, how do you not let this happen? And it was just so frightening to me. So like I just can like when you guys talk about your panic attacks and stuff, like it does really hit home. Like that's scary.
Yeah,
It is
super scary.
I'd literally be like falling asleep and I would get like a shock that would like I'd literally sit up like a corpse.
That's freaking insane.
My brother had panic attacks, my best friend had panic attacks, and my ex-boyfriend had panic attacks, which I witnessed, which was like terrifying. See someone, a person being like freaking out,
It's
witnessing
scary.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also crazy because different people, everyone's panic attacks are different. Just like how anxiety and depression is like unique to each person, like a snowflake, people's panic attacks are completely different. And so some people, they're like, it's like very emotional. They'll cry. It'll be like, I'm freaking out. It's super like, my feelings. For me, it was like purely physical. When I went in the ER and they're like, oh, it's your unconscious mind, telling your body to be anxious. I was like, what? I feel like I'm having a heart attack. This is not my emotions.
Yeah. And like for me, everything would like, besides like the beating or the beating heart, like super fast, everything would just like tighten up and close in my body. So like I just felt like everything was closing and like my throat would get super, super tight. Like my whole body would just get so tight, like as if like I was just getting smashed. It was just the absolute worst feeling. Don't
Oh
like
my
those.
God. I would literally feel like I
It's the
was sinking,
worst.
like in my body. It was so
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Have you had a panic attack in the last year, or have they healed?
That healed when I basically that I had the panic attack before or right when I found medical medium. I'm not exactly sure on the timeline, but doing medical medium basically for that first 6 months when I was in that roller coaster relationship, addicted to nicotine. I would do nicotine, have the panic attack symptoms, alcohol, panic attack symptoms, weed, panic attack symptoms. I couldn't do anything anymore, which is a good thing. It really kept me not going back into that. But yeah, basically like 6 to 8 months after finding medical medium information, I didn't have any more of that. I still have little remnants here and there. Like I'll get like fast heartbeat after I have the heavy metal detox smoothie, or every once in a while I'll get like a little shock twinge somewhere in my chest area. But for the most part, gone. It's done. I will never drink another coffee again or smoke weed or drink alcohol to see if those things trigger it. But yeah,
Wow, that's amazing.
that's a huge thing for me that healed with medical medium.
Yeah, that's huge.
Great.
That's my whole story basically.
Fantastic. Just okay, keep things light so we can transition into the chapter. If you had to go, you can only choose two medical medium protocols You can only have 2. What would they be and why?
David, I wrote this question down, but I was nice. I said you could have 3.
Yeah, you see, I knew 3 would be too nice because then you would just do the lemon water, celery juice, heavy metal detox. So 2.
Protocol. Define protocol. Can I pick a cleanse?
Nope.
What?
Oh,
Yeah,
that protocol? I can't say the 28
that's a
day
protocol.
all raw food.
But you get everything in that. You can't pick a cleanse. You can't pick a cleanse.
So just 3 tools.
Yep. 2.
Or 2.
2. 2 tools.
2 tools?
Just 2. I know.
I'm trying to think of all
hard.
the ones. Heavy metal detox smoothie, celery juice, lemon water. What about supplements? Can I just say supplements, or do I have to
You
pick one?
could no, you got to pick 1 or 2. The 2 you can't live without.
The 2 I can't live without. I guess I'm gonna be basic and just say celery juice and heavy metal detox.
Okay. All right. So,
Good choices.
yeah, those are
I don't
strong
know.
choices.
I'll do like a lemon honey ginger water though.
Oh no, you guys are frozen.
Well, I mean, that's too many at that point. That's 3.
I don't know. Kavai said I could pick 3, so
No, this wasn't
Wait,
Kavai's
you were
question.
frozen. What did you say?
I was frozen.
There was nothing important. It was nothing important.
Oh.
I love ginger water. That's my morning. Lemon honey ginger water, celery juice, HMDS.
Okay.
Oh, you
fine.
have to.
And I
Let
you
go
said
of
I.
the... Oh yeah.
Oh,
See, I was
Kavai,
nice.
no.
I let you do your morning routine.
I know, and the thing is like that's too nice. Everyone's gonna pick that. That's like if I ask this question to someone else, they're gonna pick that same thing. I would pick that same thing because we're smart. But you only get 2, so you pick celery juice and heavy metal detox. I respect it.
That I like the most. That I like doing the most.
No, it's not that you like. It's the ones that you would. Yeah, you could also. It could. I guess it could be based. We're totally overthinking it. It was just supposed to be something really simple. Yeah, we're sticking with it. All right, we are going into the chapter now. It is about damn time. Okay, so we will be talking about chapter 10, the moderation trap. And right now we're currently in Brainsaver if you haven't been following along with us. But yeah, so just to hit the chapter off with a bang and get right into it. Moderation. Says basically this is permission to do things that aren't great for us. The term moderation. That's what he says. It allows us to do things that aren't good for us. And it never really works for anyone, this term moderation.
Since everybody, like, moderation can't really be measured, because what would be moderation for somebody could actually kill another person, depending on whether it's alcohol or even with allergies. Like, someone who eats nuts could eat nuts, but then someone who can't eat nuts could literally die from the same amount. So there's no way to measure it.
The word moderate, I think, like in our day and age, like the reason why people like this idea of moderation is because it's all warm and fuzzy. Like says, is basically this opposite of extreme. And we equate it to the idea of balance, which is really screwed up because this moderation trap, right? I mean, this whole chapter really is about conditioning, like what we've been conditioned to believe and do. And so this is sort of a theme, right, in all of the traps out there in the health world, is that they'll make something seem like it's good by calling it something, and it sort of tricks our minds into thinking it's good, like, oh, it's moderate, it's balanced, it's in the middle of the scale or the spectrum, and so I'm like safe if I do that. If I go anywhere too far on either side, then I'm an extremist and then I'm not safe. So a lot of people will say medical medium information is extreme, right? And so then they'll be like afraid to do it. You know how many people I've talked to who are like, oh, when I first started doing this, my family was like afraid for me. Afraid, like literally fear of doing medical medium information. But he literally says at the beginning of the chapter, our physical body doesn't like moderation. Because it's not whatever idea that you like. It's about the truth. Like, we don't say it's extreme when a cow eats nothing but grass. We say it's the cow's diet. It's what the cow needs.
You're right. So the physical body is not a fan of moderation. And it's crazy because the body, though, is governed by our subconscious and our conscious mind. And so our mind can be injured or it can be persuaded to want something that isn't good for us. And I think that's kind of the thing that you were hitting on too, Audrey, when you mentioned like this chapter talks about us being conditioned. And also, this was something that I was hitting on kind of like when we were talking about your mom a little bit earlier. And I thought, like, maybe that was playing a role in terms of just like we see everything around us and we're conditioned and we hear people telling us, like, oh, medical medium's too extreme, right? Like, you can't be doing that. It needs to be balanced. And so our mind gets manipulated. We get manipulated. On the other hand, too, I was thinking of this as well, like medical medium, and we talked about this on another podcast, but he just talks about how we have this like ability to try and want to find, I don't want to say, I can't remember the right terminology, but he said almost like uh, an easier way to do things, or like we're always trying to look for like an easier way out, for lack of a better term. And so like for these things, like for example, medical medium says, hey, lemon water, celery juice, heavy metal detox smoothie. That's a lot of freaking work. Like that is not easy unless you have someone making it for you. That is a lot of work. And so a lot of people, and even me, like when I first read that, I thought, yeah, that's cool. I did it for like 3 days. I didn't like how I felt when I did it because I was so sick and just disgusting that like I just had, it didn't go down well. And then on top of that, I had to do all the work myself. And then I had to clean it up. Not a fan. But then when someone told me like, hey, you don't need to do this. Just drink this little protein shake in the morning that I made sure it had the top tier ingredients and you'll be good. And so I tried that. I actually was doing celery juice and I was like, this guy says this other thing is really good. So I tried that shake for like 30 days. And it was a terrible mistake, but I was looking for like is something else, like an easier way out to not have to do that. And I think so it's so easy for us to get programmed in that way,
This is the world of biohacking. This is
Yes.
here to want to pop a pill and fix a problem. We all want it. Everyone who's in the medical community, if somebody came along and said, here's a pill, it'll fix your symptoms, and it actually worked, we'd all be taking that shit down.
Oh,
You're so
definitely.
right. You're so right. Oh man, and that's the thing. And it's like I look at when you just hit on biohacking, so I just have to hit on this too. Like I look at it and just like the amount of things from like breath work to ice baths. Ice baths is so big right now. And like the amount of like hurt that you're doing to your adrenals on the daily, because people do this like every morning. Instead of going and juicing your lemon water and celery juice and all this, you are in an ice bath. And those are the things that are going to make you worse and hurt you. And the thing that medical medium hits on this chapter is like, so our mind, right, our subconscious and our consciousness are getting persuaded. Our physical body doesn't like it. And you know what takes the toll at the end of the day? Well, our physical body does, but also our soul. Also, our soul has to go along for the ride of all these unhealthy things that we're doing to ourselves and all the hurt that we're causing ourselves at the end of the day.
This concept that he has, like moderation becomes permission to do something that is bad for us. It's interesting because in the beginning, like when moderation, the concept and the word first came about, it was the first time when humans weren't facing starvation. Like they had enough abundance where they could eat themselves sick. Right. And so this idea of moderation was sort of to temper that in so we didn't kill ourselves on the other extreme of indulging too much and eating ourselves to death. But it's interesting because now, instead of sort of protecting us of this idea of moderation protecting us, moderation is now being weaponized and it's now unprotecting us. It's literally saying it's okay to poison yourself. And the thing is why is that a thing? It's literally marketed to us so that we will buy whatever bad thing, whether it's cigarettes or alcohol or that junk food. It's literally like this, like the word cheat, I heard this a while ago, the word cheat in any other area of life is a bad thing. You cheated on your husband, that's a bad thing. But when it comes to food, oh, I just cheated on my diet. I just had a little cookie cheat. It's like cute. They literally have it, one day a week is your cheat day. It's like they literally sold that to us that we would like indulge and break whatever we were doing that was good for us, for our bodies. It's
And I
sick.
fell for it. I fell for it
We
for a
all
long
fall for
time. And it's just it's it's mind blowing to me though too, like the amount of people, like if you try and go against it, I mean the amount of hate you get. I think I brought this story up before on the podcast, but when I was serving, um one of my coworkers and like a guest were talking, and somehow we got into a conversation about food habits, and the server said, "Oh yeah, like it's all about like moderation, that's what I believe in." And then I looked at her and I was all like, "Moderation is complete bullshit. Like, I don't believe that at all." And I mean, usually I don't come off that aggressive, usually because you don't get anyone's like, you can never bring someone to your side if you say it like that. But I was just not in the mood. And then the guest in the back starts talking about like biohacking and all these other things. Like, no, I mean, it's all about moderation. And then, because like if you drink alcohol like occasionally and stuff, and you making sure you're doing your ice baths and all these other things. And I was like, no, if you have alcohol, the moment you have alcohol, it's doing damage to your brain. Your brain is dying. Your brain doesn't like it. And I was like, moderation is a trap. And they went on for like a couple more minutes, and I was like, this is obviously, I can't do anything here. I already fucked it up by my approach. And so I just walked away. But it's just like, if you try and go against the norm, people will try and fight you as much as they can, because it just makes them so uncomfortable to admit, like, hey, maybe this isn't okay. It's not okay that I'm drinking alcohol. It's not okay that like I'm smoking and all this stuff. And it's interesting because at the same time, even though it may not be okay, like for the physical body, this is where medical medium and like compassion come in so big. Because like, yeah, it may not be okay, but you just have to have so much compassion and hold it for yourself. So like, even if you do have a cheat meal or do something that maybe isn't the best for you, and going away from your medical medium protocols, there's no need to beat yourself up. Like, it's all about compassion at that point, understanding it's okay, but just trying to get yourself back on track.
Yeah.
And I feel like people that do the moderation trap, they secretly know that it's not good for them and that it's hurting them. And that's probably why it hurts, or like it bothers them to see other people doing and like being extreme, because like they're like, it's challenging what they're doing. Because I mean, with moderation, like they say that a little bit of caffeine or a little bit of alcohol is actually good for you, but we all know that's not true. Definitely not.
Like, I just think about like when I started like smoking weed a lot more heavily, I just looked at the people around me and I thought, well, they're smoking weed and they're fine. So even though I've heard that it's not good, and medical medium at the time, which I didn't know too well, but I kind of knew it's probably not within regulation. So what he's talking about, they're fine. They were not fine because they had issues of their own, very much so. But I decided to let that be the permission for me to be like, okay with smoking weed.
It's like if you're the one person in the group, it's like if all your friends are drinking and you're not drinking, then why aren't you drinking? They always ask that, right? Like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you fun? Why don't you loosen up? Just have one drink, you know? But like if everyone around you started doing medical medium and you're like, drinking tons of alcohol, eating tons of junk food, all of a sudden you're gonna be like, like I'm projecting that all these people are judging me for the terrible habits that I'm doing, because deep down you know that it's bad for you.
Yeah.
But I just remember
Exactly.
something you said earlier, David, about like people get so like righteous and like mad at people who do medical medium, and like they'll fight it. And it's amazing because it's like, but this literally came from this whole idea of moderation. Our modern notion of it literally came from it being sold to us. Like, how the heck are common people, like, why do they care? Like, how is it so ingrained? And it's literally like we figured out how to get us to police each other, to shove the
Mhm.
moderation trap and to trap each other into it.
Kind of reminds me of that saying, "Misery loves company." Like maybe they do it because they're addicted to these things, but they know that it is not right for them, so they don't want to be alone in doing it. But like what you just said, if they were the only ones drinking alcohol and everyone else around them would started doing MM, like they would definitely start to do MM too. They would not want to be the only ones poisoning themselves. So with moderation, and if you've been sick, like if you've tried to eat moderately or do things in moderation and it hasn't worked for you, and you're sick with chronic symptoms, and you've like found the MM information in this chapter, he says how our souls can recognize when we find the truth and the information of how to actually heal and take care of ourselves, and that like our souls will recognize it as if we're finally meeting a soulmate for the first time after being in like toxic relationships our whole life. And that spoke to me so much. And especially when Audrey, you were sharing your story about when you read the first medical medium book and you just knew instantly. And like this is basically exactly what that is. Like what he was saying, you just recognize it right away and you're like, this is it. Like you just know because you've seen all the other things out there and you're like, there's no way this isn't true. Like
I freaking love how perfect and spot on his analogies are. Like they get the point across so well.
they do.
So I totally agree with that because, like, I mean, that same thing happened to me when I read, like the first couple pages one night when I pulled the book open. Like, it just totally spoke to me, changed my life. Perspective forever has changed. I've also read other books though, or other things, where like I felt like a similar feeling, like this has to be true, like this has to be right, like almost similar to like when I was reading Medical Medium. It might be the exact same similar feeling, but the one thing that I can say that differs from everything is that Medical Medium actually worked. And with all those other things that I felt like that with, my heart just got crushed and broken every time because it did not work. And with Medical Medium, it was the total opposite. It just healed. And it kept healing me. And it kept healing my heart that was broken from all these other things that broke me. And it's like, I can't remember where I was going with that, but just like the feeling of reading Medical Medium and believing that, but then also like believing this is the truth, but then also seeing the proof of it, seeing the proof in the pudding when you actually do the work is like that feeling stays with you. It's the one thing that I know in my life that can be constant. I know if I wake up every morning, I do my lemon water, my celery juice, my heavy metal detox smoothie, if I eat my potatoes, like if I do these things, I'm going to keep moving in the right direction. I'm going to keep healing no matter what happens. It's the only thing that's like a constant in my life like that, where I find so much safety and serenity and like truth and hope.
Definitely. I
Medical
like that you brought that up as well because like not everyone that reads the MM books just instantly know it's true cuz I mean, yeah, like not everybody does. People will read the book like my stepmom had the books, read all of the books, but didn't really believe that it was true. And like some people just need to see the proof because they, just don't trust it right away, but it's different for everybody, I guess.
Yeah. I have something to say, I don't remember anymore. They'll come back to me.
Must have been a lie.
Must have been a lie.
Oh, the thing about safety. Because he literally says in this chapter on moderation is that people feel like it's a warm, fuzzy safety blanket, this idea of moderation. And you said, I wake up every morning, this constant in my life feels like true safety. And I agree with you because it's like I now don't have to be afraid of something like cancer killing me. I now have the tools to fight some scary diagnosis that won't come down the road because I'm doing something to protect myself. And I also
I
love the idea of the constant. It's a constant. It is. Isn't that crazy with everything in our life being not constant and being like so ever changing and ever unpredictable. This is a constant in our lives. I've never, like, the way you said that, it hit me.
Yeah, I can. Like when you bring up like the sickness thing, like you'll never, like you know what cancer is, where it's coming from, and what you can do to protect yourself. And I think that's like the biggest peace of mind. Um, is my health, because when your health is deteriorating on such a level that you've never seen before, you can't even function or do the normal things that a normal human being should just be able to do. That's like not asking too much, right? When you're not able to do those activities, the only thing that you care about is like your health. And it's the scariest thing, because when your health is declining, you know where you once were, and now you see where you are, and you're just like, how do I get better? What do I do? And honestly, at that point in time, if you're not doing medical medium, you're only getting worse. And it's just like everything, it's like time is moving without you, and you're just getting left in the dust because you just keep getting worse. It's the scariest thing. And like for me personally, like I brought up like that example of the panic attack earlier, like when I saw my ex have a panic attack. That like put a real like that really like scared me so much, to the point of where like sickness and like health became like, it was already a big thing on my radar, but that took it up a notch, because like in that moment, like when you're having a panic attack, you feel fight or flight. It's the scariest thing ever, like literally think you're dying. And when that became like a reality, to like, oh my gosh, like this can happen, and this can happen to my loved ones. If I have a family, if I have kids and they're going through this and I can't protect them, like what am I going to do? Like how, like I, if I don't know and I can't protect them, I don't feel safe. Like I don't feel safe myself, so how can I make them feel safe? Like I have to know what's going on. I have to know how to protect them. It is so important. And so that added aspect of like, yes, your health is so important. And at some point, when you start to get sick and stuff, and you start to realize that's a reality that you're going to have to face one day, and you want to start looking like, okay, what are the answers to this? How can I actually stop this from happening? How can I protect myself, my loved ones, my family, whoever it is? That's when like medical medium information, like it's just there glaring, and it literally changes lives because of that, you know?
Yeah, it's like that quote I see everywhere. It's like you think everything else matters until you get sick, and then only one thing matters, and it's your health.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The MM information I think is just the greatest gift, and to not have like, because when I was younger I would always have a fear of like if I was going to get sick, if I was going to get cancer or whatever, and I was like, how do you even stop that? Like once you get sick, you just, I don't know, like there didn't really seem like there was much answers out there, but then when you have MM info, like you just don't have that same fear, like you know how to protect yourself, and it's just the greatest gift that you could ever ask for.
I know. You don't have to be like terrified of what's going to happen to you when you get older, or if you have a child and it's going to have autism. Like you literally know it won't happen because of what you're doing.
Yeah. This is a great segue too, and just in the idea of like, so you get sick, right? And you have to use your free will though to begin. Like, and I feel like a lot of people that push moderation and balance are people that have symptoms, that have been sick and or trying different things, And medical medium talks about how like on your healing journey, like you get sick, you go to all these doctors, nothing's happening. And so at some point, like you have the free will to be like, you know what? I have to start trying to take risks. I have to start trying to figure out what's going on. So people like jump out of their comfort zone, start trying to get into all these other things to try and figure it out, which is such a noble thing. Like you are using your free will to try and find the answers to get better because you care. You care, you want to live, you want to take care of yourself, you want those answers. The problem is though, is there's so much misinformation out there, right? And this goes back to the soul thing. Like your soul, unfortunately, has to just get carried along this journey. of you taking all these risks, doing all this misinformation, hurting yourself, maybe damaging yourself, causing more sickness, and your soul is there taking the beating until you can find medical medium and actually pursue it. But there is one thing I want to say, but this journey, like the health journey in terms of taking all those risks and then leading me to medical medium. I don't know, at some point I think on every podcast I have to mention this, but it's like it's something that I would never change. As much as I hate it, I wish that I could have found medical medium earlier, but at the same time, like I wouldn't change when I found it because man, did I just like learn so much and I gained so much wisdom. And I think without all those experiences, I probably would have never dived into medical medium like I did because I needed all those failures and everything for me to finally believe. And I hate to say that, but I am such a stubborn person that I would have not believed until I hit rock bottom like I did.
Yeah, that is one thing I can definitely say. I'm very grateful for being sick and being able to find MM. I would not change anything because having the information and knowing the truth is just, I just think about it every day and it blows my mind still. And I'm just not, I'll never be the same person that I was before MM.
And here we are. This would have never happened either.
Yeah, we never would have met each other. We never.
Like you. Yeah. And we're so
Yes.
young. I just can't imagine, going my whole life. What do you say? 80,000 meals in a lifetime. How many of those are the healing foods? It's like now we get to make the next 60,000 meals or however much longer our lives are going to be.
Well, I eat a lot of meals, so mine might be a little bit more.
120.
1,000.
But no,
But
we're
yeah,
all
so
incredibly lucky to be starting so early.
we are. And just to be clear too, once you finally get the truth and you jump on this path to medical medium and you try it out, like that is when your soul can your soul will recognize it and it can lead to growth. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now, where we're like kind of talking and reflecting, like we have grown so much. And it's not until we start healing could we see all the growing and like, holy hell, the journey that we've been on. But when you finally see the truth, you recognize it, your soul can recognize it, it can lead to your growth.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
Amen.
Anyone else want to say anything, or are we good to close this off?
I am so glad that you guys invited me on your show. I had such a good time.
Good.
So I just wanted to
We're
say
very happy to have had you.
Yeah.
The perfect first guest.
Oh,
Agreed.
and it's
Agreed.
very cathartic telling my story like this because I've never done this before. So, like from
It will
start
help
to
so many people.
True.
thank you.
And
Yeah,
you're
no,
a
we
great storyteller, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
In my head, I'm like, oh my God, I'm talking too much.
No.
You weren't. If anything, I was so captivated, and my mom kept texting me. I was pissed because I was like in, I was in, and my mom just freaking kept texting me this stuff.
Oh, we're getting to the big part.
Yeah.
I just
My
see
mom
your
literally-
straight face, and then the
You
text
won't believe
happens. You're
this.
like,
My
no.
mom texted me like 5 times or whatever, and then I tell her in the podcast stop texting me, and then she texts me again. I thought she would say okay. She texts me, I can't log into this thing. Send me the code. So then I send her the code, and then and then I say stop texting me, and I send that. Then I get another message alert of a new code, so I send her that code, and then my mom. After I send her that code, my mom texts me, you know what? I'm just gonna do it later. And I'm literally just like,
no.
are you serious? Like, no, you better do it. I don't text her this, but I'm thinking to myself, you better do it now. Like, you did all this. You made all this happen.
All of this was happening behind the scenes, and we never knew.
I know.
No,
I kept my game face on.
Yeah,
but
you had your poker face on real good.
I was
We had no
blowing
idea.
up inside. And like usually I'm pretty cool, but this story was so captivating that I was just like, please, like, Mom, you're ruining it. And the thing is, I couldn't explain the whole thing to her, how my notifications on my laptop is going off. Like, I just need her to understand, stop texting me. It doesn't work with moms. But okay, yeah. So I think once again, Audrey, we really appreciated you on the podcast. Thank you for opening up about your story. It was fantastic, and I mean, so much of the MM community, whoever listens to this, is going to learn so much, and I mean, I can already tell so much, and so many people are going to relate to it. It was really, really powerful, really, really inspiring. So thank you once again.
Yeah,
Thank,
absolutely. It was an honor to have you.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So everybody, thank you for listening to this episode of the MM Breakdown. The MM Breakdown crew is out.